Hi everyone. I don't know if that may have been a bit loud.
Hi everyone.
I'm having a problem now. Okay, I took care of it. There was feedback, audio feedback in my streaming. Let me show the chat. Um, all right. So this is my first time streaming live on YouTube and on Twitch. Um, Maybe I will crash and burn. I don't know. I don't know very well how it works, but I've managed to put something together. Um, the first thing I want to say is that this stream is going to be, yeah, and of course everything is starting to make noises around me. This stream is going to be a fundraiser for Stand Up to Cancer. Um, when I was a kid, on TV, they were showing from time to time a telethon for a telethon for cancer, and it would last for an evening or a small amount of time. Stand Up to Cancer is pretty much like a telethon, but it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all the time. So what they do is that they fund dream teams that do clinical trials. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you can find there I have a list of videos for Stand Up to Cancer that explain what they do. Some of them are promotional videos. One of them has Stephen Merchant in it. I like him very much. And yeah, what I wanted to say is that they have some of them are some of the little clips are personal stories, and first of all, they're very touching. When I listen to them, I tear up every time, and a lot of times the stories are about people who had cancer. They tried a lot of things to try to control the cancer and make it go away, and they couldn't. And until the last treatment they received was from a team that was financed by Stand Up to Cancer, at least in part. I don't know how much. And then they recovered. So Stand Up to Cancer funds leading edge research in cancer. So I'm supporting them. And you can see, let me see if I'm going, oops, nope, wrong direction. In the corner of the screen here, there's a little QR code that will take you, if you scan it, to my charity page, the fundraiser for this charity. And it's, I think I've set it up for June and July. You can already donate to it if you want to. There's no limit. Um, but if you want to donate, Stephen Merchant was even saying like £10, which is about $15. Even $15 can make a difference. So I encourage you to give. Um, let's see what I wanted to show you also. Oh yeah, the plan for the streaming is tonight. I'm just going to talk about my injections of stimulant. The next streaming that is planned is on, uh, well, let me say, on Thursday next week. I will stream from the hospital. I'm going to have my blood filtered. And while I have my blood filtered, probably the nurses will come from time to time and they won't want to be on camera or to even be heard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to when that happens, I'm going to switch first of all, um, show a ticker. Whoops, not this one. uh, this one, yeah. And I'm going to show this page also. Whoops. and return. Yeah, whoops, that's not what I want. Yeah, like this. Yeah, so you'll see sometimes a kind of intertitle when they're doing stuff to me that I don't want you to see. This shouldn't turn into some sort of uh, horror show or something. So what I've been doing these days, starting today, is inject myself with a stimulant that will cause my bone marrow to produce a lot of stem cells. That's how they explain it to me. That the first product I'm getting, which is called, let me look at my notes, it's called Fligrestim. I don't know how to pronounce it. And actually it has another name. It's Nivestim by Pfizer. It stimulates the bone marrow, and my bone marrow is going to produce a lot of stem cells, and that already is going to cause the stem cells to get into my blood. And I said that I would show myself the self-injection that I did this morning, but I'm not going to do it because the recording was not very high quality. Maybe I'll do another day, I'm not sure. But this was the first time today, and it ended up not being terribly good quality. So what I do have is the used syringe. So these are the syringes they make for injecting ourselves. This one has been used, and you can know it's been used because the cover here is over the needle, has sprung out over the needle. Normally this thing is pulled back down, and then you can inject yourself. But this is I think a fairly nice design. Not as nice as I think the PCSK9 inhibitor, because the PCSK9 inhibitor was just like push and you're done. This you have to be a little more careful. You have to pull the skin and stuff like that. But it's pretty nice compared to the Copaxone, which has a depth gauge, and I don't know how you set that damn thing. I asked the nurses and they couldn't tell me, or they didn't want to tell me. I don't know. I didn't deal with great people when they were diagnosing me with MS. The folks were not terribly great that were taking care of my case. So I'm getting the Fligrestim stimulant for 6 days. Yeah, 6 days. So I'm going to have it also tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And then when I go to the hospital, I'm going to go on Wednesday and Thursday for sure, and maybe Friday. On Wednesday and Thursday, they're going to give me something called Mozobil. I don't know the other. Usually the medicines have two names. I don't know the other name of Mozobil. And the Mozobil, what it will do is, the way they explained it to me, is that it's going to open the doors and the windows of my bone marrow to let the stem cells out. So it doesn't cause my bone marrow to generate stem cells, but it causes the stem cells that are in the bone marrow to get out of there, and then they can be filtered by the machine. Let me check something. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody right now in chat. So we have no questions so far. So the plan for now, after I'm done with the injections, well, not after I'm done, but while I'm having the injections, is for on June 1st, I'm going to have another COVID test. It's very important. Right now they're giving everybody who's admitted at the hospital a COVID test. This is going to be probably I'm probably running in the 20s in terms of the number of COVID tests that I've taken because I've had 9 rounds of chemo, and every time they gave me a COVID test. And before I had the chemo, I was at the hospital for the attack I had on June 5th, 2020. And then I went to the hospital quite often after that, because I didn't know what was going on with me. So I've had tons of COVID tests, and this one's probably going to come back negative, as it usually does. Uh, but it's important that we take the test to make sure that the people who are going to be seen at the hospital are not contagious. Um, then on June 2nd, I am going to have a Hickman catheter installed, to be able to filter my blood the next day. So right now I have a port, and you cannot see it because it's under the skin, but you can see a little bit the scar here. I have a port installed here. It's under the skin, and usually when I have a procedure done at the hospital, they access the port instead of trying to put an IV into my veins. At some point, I asked for the port because the nurses were starting to mutter under their breath that they couldn't find the veins anymore. I guess my skin or whatever was getting too difficult to find the veins. So I've had the port installed, but this port, it's not good enough for the machine. It doesn't have a high enough flow. So they have to install a Hickman catheter, and I can show you what it is. I have to share my screen, and the Hickman is right there. Yeah. Whoops. There it is. Oops. Yep. I'm going to keep it from the day before I get my blood filtered to the day after I get my stem cells back. So it's gonna be a while because I get my the blood filtered on the 3rd. Then I'm going to see the doctor on the 7th for deciding whether or not we're gonna go forth with the procedure. They need to do some more tests even after they have the stem cells taken from me, and when the procedure is gonna be. So I'm gonna have it at least for a week and maybe 2 weeks. And they've told me how to take care for it. They're responsible for changing the dressings, but I'm responsible for not getting it wet. And I've got some. I went on Amazon and I got myself. Whoops, upside down. Cool Relief. This thing. It's the first time I'm using this. I don't know if it's gonna work well. I don't know. I'm expecting that it's gonna work well because the catheter doesn't seem to be too big. But before I used this, when I had last fall, they were doing a whole bunch of tests on me, and one of the tests was I had a Zeo monitor. It was monitoring my heart, and I couldn't get it wet when I was taking a shower, so I used this to put over it. The only problem with this is that it's super sticky, and if you put it over a Zeo and you just put it over it without any protection over the Zeo, and it clings to the Zeo, and when you pull it out, the Zeo wants to come with the, with the film. I what I did after the first time I pulled and I was very careful, and then the second time what I did is I just put masking tape on the Zeo, and then I put that over the masking tape, and it can pull the masking tape no problem. So I took care of that way. But this time I decided that this would be an upgrade, maybe. If it works well, I'll let you know. So I'm gonna have the Hickman for, yeah, at least 1 week, probably 2 weeks. And now let's talk about. Oh yeah. So on the second, I'm going to get the Hickman. It's going to be an operation under local anesthesia. I've always thought I would be under Twilight, that I would just not remember it. I know when I had the port, I was aware of just about everything they did to me, but I think at some point during the operation I fell asleep. So they're taking good care of me, you know. They give good drugs to keep me calm and everything. So I just slept a little bit during that operation. This one I expect is going to be the same. That either I'm just not going to remember it or I'm going to fall asleep in the middle of it. So that's June 2nd. And at the end of the day on June 2nd, they are going to give me the muzzle bill that I mentioned earlier that opens the doors and windows of the stem cells that push them into my blood. Then on June 3rd and 4th, those are the days we've set aside for filtering my blood. And on the 3rd, certainly on the 3rd, I'm going to be there all day, and I'm going to be streaming all day also. And with possible pauses, like I said earlier, that if I'm not available, there's going to be a pause in the streaming. The 4th will depend on how much we got on the 3rd. If on the 3rd we get enough stem cells in the blood, I mean in the collected blood, whatever material they call it, I don't remember, then I'm going to be fine with just 1 day, but it's possible that they're going to need 2 days to collect enough stem cells. I don't think 3 days. I guess it's always a possibility, but I don't think it's going to go to 3 days. On June 4th, I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do. Maybe I will be streaming and just waiting for people to ask questions. And that's about it. That's about the plan for now. On the 2nd, when they do the installation of the Hickman catheter, I'm definitely not going to be streaming like I'm doing now because I'm going to be in the hospital and I'm going to undergo an operation. At most, I might have my phone with me, and Twitter allows you to live stream little snippets. I don't remember what the limit is, but it's pretty low limit. So that's why I'm not streaming this on Twitter, because they would just cut the stream in the middle. So I may be using Twitter to tweet and to post some little snippets of what's going on that day, but I will not stream like I'm doing right now. That will be for the day of filtering my blood. And also I want to make sure that you know that you can ask questions, I wouldn't say any question. I made that remark before, that you can ask a lot of questions. You can ask questions on chat on YouTube or on Twitch, and I will answer them. You know, you want to know how I feel about cancer, you can ask it. You want to know, how I perceive my wife to feel about cancer, you can ask it. You can ask any question, so you can go into chat and ask questions. Oh, there I have a question. Uh, all right. So I think I was done with what I was going to say. So somebody is asking. It's probably my aunt. It says it in Zubo. It's my aunt. She's asking if it's the normal procedure to administer yourself the product without medical supervision. I think it is. I mean, I haven't been. It's my first time, so it's all new to me as much as it is to you. I've never done this before. I think it is normal. The medical supervision is that we do get beforehand education. So they didn't send me home with a bunch of syringes and say just shoot yourself. I I would not have liked that, and I don't think it. I did. I don't think they ever. Well, sometimes I think they do that, but I don't think they should. There was a nurse with it. She had a syringe that was not quite like this because it wasn't used. So the little protector at the top was retracted, and it had a needle and everything. And she showed me, the movements, how to inject myself, and how to, how what would happen with this once I'm injecting myself, and how to clean because I have to clean the area I before I inject myself. Um, and it's the same thing with the catheter. I had classes where she showed me how to. Um, well, first of all, she said, don't get it wet, and for not getting it wet, they leave you a little bit to your own devices. She was saying you can use saran wrap or something. Like, I see. I mean, I imagine people in the shower with the saran wrap and going like, I'm hitting the sharps container. It's just ridiculous. For that part of it, they don't help people much with avoiding water. So that's why I decided to just do my own thing and buy my own tools and do the thing. Um, but she did show me, and she asked me to demonstrate live how to flush my catheter because when I'm here, we're gonna have to flush it every day. Um, the port that I already have, whoops, over here, um, it's you flush it once a month, and typically I try to time my visits to the hospital and everything, and I ask the nurses so that I don't need to do it. I don't need to make a trip to the hospital just for them to flush it. It has almost happened at one point that I had to just go to the hospital for them to flush the port, and it's 1 hour away, one way from here, so it's a 2 hour trip. And I managed to get uh, another hospital to flush it because I switched hospitals. I had my chemotherapy at Johns Hopkins, and I'm going to have my stem cell transplant at University of Maryland Medical Center. So I switched hospitals in the two between the two procedures. So she showed me how to flush it because it has to be flushed daily, and she asked me to demonstrate to her that I could do it, and I knew I could do it because uh, last fall, after I was discharged from Inova, I went to a bunch of hospitals, and one of the hospitals I went to was Inova, which is in Virginia. It's about maybe 1 hour away from here. All the good hospitals are about 1 hour away from where we live. Um, they discharged me with instructions to administer myself an antibiotic because they discovered an infection, and they couldn't be sure whether the infection was really had really taken over my body or if it was just kind of when they pricked me to test it, if it's something that was on the skin and just went in with it. So they took the safe route and decided that I should be taking antibiotics. And at that time, they installed a special line. I don't remember the name of the line. They installed a line. It's somewhere between a port and a Hickman line. It's less impressive than a Hickman line, but it's more than a port. And it came out of my skin. And they sent me home with that. and with medicine and instructions, and the nurse came to instruct me again uh, to um, to inject myself the medicine, and also to do the flushes. So I had done flushes in fall. So when she showed me how to do the flushes, I was like, okay, I, I know how to do that. And you need to rub the end of the thing and then just put the syringe on it, and you're done. So yeah, they've been pretty good for that. The only, as far as education goes, the only problem I had was in November, or maybe it was, no, it was in November. It was the first time I was discharged from Johns Hopkins, when I got my first round of chemo. The first time they discharged me, they managed to mess it up. And the reason they managed to mess it up, I think, was because I just had a brain biopsy, but after my brain biopsy, they sent me directly to chemo to get the treatment right away, because quite frankly, I think I was not far away from death at that point. Um, so I went straight to chemo. They gave me the chemo, and I think in the chemo ward, the nurses are not used to have people come straight from surgery into their ward, um, because I had a catheter to pee. I I don't remember what the name is in French, but a catheter in English, it's basically have a tube coming into your genitals, and then you pee in a bag. So I had a catheter, and they discharged me with a catheter, um, and I got no instructions about how to care for it, and I was discharged with very small bags that didn't contain much. And I learned afterwards, because I went on the internet and I searched, I learned afterwards that normally you get instructions when you're discharged with a catheter, and also you get bigger bags for the night, because I had at night I had to get up every 3 hours to pee, because otherwise the bag was getting full. And I was not supposed to sleep with that. I read on the internet I was not supposed to sleep with that, and it took a while to get to find the information that I needed, and response from the hospital that I needed. I finally managed to just do it on my own. I ordered materials on Amazon to be able to do it, and the hospital put in an order, but the order came in after I had the stuff from Amazon. So I managed to do it by myself. And with the help, I have to say, there was a nurse at Johns Hopkins that helped me. He gave me some equipment, and I was able to manage. Uh, but that's the only time that I think that they failed at educating me. Otherwise, I think the education we get when they say do it at home, I guess they gauge the person's willingness to do it, because I know some person are really afraid of needles. Uh, I'm not afraid of needles. That's not a problem, but they gauge how much the person wants to do it. And in my case, because I'm quite willing to do it, they just show me how to do it, and I do it. And it's generally not being a problem. As I say, there's only the discharge with the catheter that was bungled. And I did complain to Johns Hopkins, and they were very apologetic. There's somebody who came into, I was going through rounds of chemo, so somebody that came while I was there in another round of chemo, and they apologized for that, and they said that they would change the procedure to make sure that it would not happen again. Yeah, I think they were just like taken by surprise or something. It was pretty weird. Um, I hope that answers the question. I went pretty far with that one. Uh, and if you have other questions, you can shoot them. Let me check something. Yeah, I don't see more questions. You surely have more questions. I didn't. There's. I just gave you a little tiny bit of my experience. Well, I'm not seeing more questions right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go over uh, well, pretty much my medical history. Not the whole history, but some of it. Mostly the lymphoma side of the medical history. So uh, I think the lymphoma started in February 2020. I had At that time I had visual problems where was seeing shimmering in my field of vision, and I went to an ophthalmologist who diagnosed me with a lot of weird, bizarre diseases that I never heard about and that you probably never heard about, and I'm not gonna try to pull them back from my memory. Uh, but it was hard, and the other thing that in retrospective, what I think now is when you have a doctor that diagnoses you with a lot of weird stuff, maybe it's time to get a second opinion, because I think that at that point the guy is like it's beyond him if he's just going from one diagnosis to the next. Um, so then on June 5th, 2020, I had an attack, and that attack manifested itself like a stroke. It looked like a stroke, except that it was too fast to be a stroke, but I didn't know that at the time. So the left side of my body, no, the right side of my body, I'm sorry, went dead for maybe 30 seconds. Uh, for 30 seconds, I couldn't move my right leg, I couldn't move my right arm, I couldn't move the right side of my face. Um, and we called 911, and they came, and they said, well, we're doing all the stroke tests on you and you passed them all. So you have a choice. You can stay home or go to the hospital. We're not going to tell you, which is which way to go. Excuse me. So I decided to stay home. Then later that night, I was sitting on the couch and I felt just this weird feeling all over my body, like a very slight pressure everywhere. So I told my wife to call. Excuse me, I'm having a lot of trouble. To call back because I wanted to go to the hospital. So they came and they took me to the hospital. And over there, they did a bunch of tests, and eventually there was an MRI in the lot. And the doctors came back and they told me that I had multiple sclerosis. Um, okay, so uh, that was, unexpected, and but I took it in stride. Okay, I have multiple sclerosis. I'm gonna inform myself about multiple sclerosis. So I went online and I joined the Discord group for multiple sclerosis, and I'm still a member of that group. And I read about multiple sclerosis, and one thing that surprised me, which is not unheard of, and it might not even be unusual, but I did not have the oligoclonal bands in my spinal fluid. They did an MRI at first, and then they did a spinal tap. So they went into my back and inserted a needle, and they took fluid out, and they analyzed it, and they didn't find those bands in the fluid, and that puzzled me. I mean, okay, I'm everybody likes to think they're special, but I don't think I'm that special. And there was that vision thing also still going on at that time. It didn't stop. The vision thing didn't stop. At some point, it went down, but then it came back up. So the vision thing was also going on, and I didn't have the oligoclonal bands, so I decided to go to Johns Hopkins and ask for a second opinion from a doctor. And I tell everyone who wants to listen to me that, if you have any doubt about the diagnosis, go get a second opinion. If the second opinion is the same as the first opinion, well, maybe you will have lost some money. I mean, I'm sorry, we're in the United States and the health system here is not great. For some people, getting a second opinion could be could be very costly. In my case, it wasn't. So I got the second opinion, and the first thing the doctor said when he saw the same imaging that was done here at the local hospital. He saw the report, he saw everything, the same everything. And the first thing he told me is that this is not MS. I don't know what it is, but it's not MS. So then, and all along, that was on August 5th, I think. I'm not sure. I'm not sure the date. I don't remember quite, but it was the beginning of August, probably August 5th. That he told me that, I don't think you have MS. He couldn't tell me what it was. In the meantime, between June 5th and August 5th, I had been to the hospital for all kinds of things. There was one thing in particular that happened during that time is that I was tested for non-fatty, wait, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Yeah, because my liver enzymes were high, and after my liver enzymes were high, and also I had terrible churning in my gut. It was not painful, but it was very uncomfortable, and the gastroenterologists were trying to figure out what was going on with me, and they decided that maybe non-alcoholic fatty liver disease would be something to check out. And so they did check it out, and it turned out that it was not that, because I passed the test. There was a first test that was indicating, oh yeah, you have a high probability, but it was just a kind of a mathematical equation. And then they did another test, which was an ultrasound, and the ultrasound showed that I didn't have it. So it was a combination of my cholesterol medicine, which higher makes my enzymes higher, and secondly, I think the discomfort in the gut, I think it's the lymphoma. Now I think it's the lymphoma. At that time I didn't know what it was, but now I think it's a lymphoma. And so I had multiple episodes going to the ER for this and that. At some point I had high blood pressure, and it's very important for me to control my blood pressure because I had a heart attack at 24. And I think I'm doing fine. I'm doing even better now because I have the PCSK9 inhibitor. But, for somebody with familial hypercholesterolemia, I was doing fine. So there were all those weird things happening to me. And now, after the fact, I think a lot of these things were the lymphoma doing stuff to my brain. So then I went, at some point, I kept going to the hospital here, local hospital where I live. And the hospital here was treating me for MS. And the treatment for MS, when you have a flare-up or a relapse, I don't remember how the terms go. Anyway, when you have a problem and you go there and you're hospitalized for 5 days maybe, or maybe 3 days, and then they release you, it doesn't matter. But when they treat you, they give you steroids. And I learned after the fact that the steroids are bad if you have a lymphoma. That it doesn't make the lymphoma worse, but it calms down the lymphoma and it makes it harder to detect it. So every time I was going to the hospital here, they were treating me for MS. I had, at some point, the doctor at Johns Hopkins said, the next time you want to go to a hospital, come over to Johns Hopkins. We're going to do this test and that test on you, and you're going to get a better deal than the local hospital. So I did that. At some point, one day I fell on November 10th. I think I fell, and on November 11th, I decided that my balance was too messed up, that I needed to go see a doctor and be seen at the hospital. So I asked my wife to drive to Johns Hopkins, and I was admitted there. Oh, but before that, I was admitted also at Johns Hopkins before that day, where they did some tests and they did even a PET scan, and the PET scan didn't catch a lymphoma. I'm a little bit, I don't know why it didn't work. Well, actually, I do know why. I was told by an oncologist that that time the tumor was too small to be seen on the PET scan because the brain lights up, and if the tumor is too small, it's just gonna, they're not gonna see it. So I'm trying to get back on track now in my story. Yeah, I had a PET scan at Johns Hopkins. I didn't find it. I continued to go to the local hospital until one day the doctor was there that time, decided that he was looking at my case. I came there choking and vomiting and having the hiccups. And at some point, it calmed down, but according to my wife, I was becoming incoherent. I was speaking, and what I thought I was saying made sense to me, but it didn't make sense to anybody who was around me. And at that point, that doctor there decided that there's nothing more that they could do for me, so he decided to find me a bed somewhere else. It was trying Johns Hopkins in Inova, but Johns Hopkins didn't have any space, and then he managed to find me a space at Inova, and I went to Inova. And there, they started talking about the possibility of a lymphoma, because I saw an oncologist there, and he said you could be having a lymphoma. And unfortunately, the steroids that they give you at your local hospital, they don't help for the diagnosis. And they also told me that for diagnosing a lymphoma, the only way to know for sure is to do a biopsy. There's no MRI that is going to tell you you have a lymphoma. There's no outside test or something that just scans the head and tells you have a lymphoma. They have to go in and do the biopsy, and they were very nervous because when they saw the MRI, they said there was something on the MRI, and the location of that thing was at the base of my brainstem, and that controls the basic bodily functions like blood pressure and also digestion, the gut. That's why I think now that in retrospect, the lymphoma was messing me up in all kinds of things, in all kinds of ways. Sorry. So I think nobody told me about the possibility that I had a lymphoma and that I would need a brain biopsy. And then I was in talks with, they discharged me with the notion that I would talk to them or to Johns Hopkins to do a biopsy. And I was in talks with Johns Hopkins to do a biopsy when I decided to just go in. That's when I fell. And the day after I decided to just go in and be admitted. Because I was in talk with them, Johns Hopkins was saying, well, we don't want to go to the biopsy first because they were also very nervous about having to go deep into my brain. It was in the brainstem. So they said, well, we can do another lumbar puncture. I think at that time I have had 3 lumbar punctures already that didn't find anything particularly relevant. So they were going to go for another lumbar puncture. They were going to, excuse me, something. Yeah. They were going to, what am I trying to say? They were going to go for a lumbar puncture. They were going to look At yeah, because I still had the vision problems and they were getting worse. They were going to do possibly a vitrectomy and try to see in my eye if they could diagnose a lymphoma. But that's a very iffy procedure that you can easily miss it, and I don't know. We were talking about it, and then the last option was the brain biopsy. Well, I cut that short because I decided to just go to the hospital and be admitted, and they admitted me, and I guess they must have done some. The timeline is a bit blurry because I was ill, so they might have done another MRI and saw that the tumor had grown to a size where the biopsy was done was a better option now. So they scrapped everything and they said, no, we're just going to do a biopsy. And on November 17th, they did the biopsy and they found the lymphoma. And yeah, my visual problems, and also I had balance problems and walking problems before they did the biopsy. The days before the biopsy, I was at the hospital, and I was seeing blurry, I was seeing double, I was cross-eyed, everything, and my walking, I could only walk with a walker. If I had tried to get out of bed just by myself and just walk around, I would have fallen. I needed a walker to walk. Um, So they did the biopsy on November 17th, and then after the biopsy, well, they confirmed that it was a lymphoma, and then they gave me immediately chemo. And when I got chemo, the change was remarkable. Right away, my vision improved, and I was able to walk. When they discharged me the first time, I was able to walk without a walker. I was coming home. Excuse me. I was coming home and I didn't have a walker here. They ordered one for me, but it had not arrived anyway. So I could walk without a walker after one round of chemo. So yeah, no, chemo doesn't affect other diseases uh, like lymphoma. So the fact that I responded to chemo so well, I mean, confirms that it is a lymphoma and not something else, and not MS, and not some other brain disease. Um, and then I had, it depends on how you count. I had 8 rounds of chemo, but I was in the hospital 9 times because there was one time where they couldn't give me the chemo because my neutrophil count was too low. But I had 8 rounds of methotrexate, and I had 6 rounds of rituximab, and that made all the difference. I was in a really poor shape when I came in, and as I said before, I mean, you look at the life expectancy of people who get primary central nervous system lymphoma without treatment, and it's months. It's not years, it's months. And I think I was at the end of my rope when they caught me. Um, so they gave me the chemo, and immediately there was an improvement. After 2 rounds of chemo, I got another MRI, and the tumor was gone. And after 5 rounds of chemo, um, my doctor said I was in remission, and I still had to finish the treatment, but um, you know, that's what we want to hear when we have cancer. We want to hear that we're in remission. Um, so yeah, that's my story. Uh, let's see. I had a notification. Maybe somebody was asking a question about something else. Oh yeah, somebody was thanking me. Um, yeah. So that's my story. I think for now, I mean, unless somebody has questions about anything, I'm going to look at the various. Oh my God, you're so shy. Um, yeah, I. Oh, and I also have a battery problem apparently. Um, so yeah, I think for now, I mean, it's about 1 hour that I've been streaming, so I think I'm going to end it now since there's no more questions. So I wish you well. If you can donate, please donate. And I'll talk to you again on Twitter, maybe on the 2nd. And on the 3rd, certainly I'll be streaming from the hospital. Thank you for listening.